Welcome back to the MMA Plug, presented to you by Mile High Sports on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz. You can give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. We're going to be talking this week's UFC Fight Night preview. If you have any thoughts on the card, let us know online. Like I say, that's me, Jordan Kurtz, at Comments from the Peanut Gallery on Instagram or Threads, or you can hit us up via the Jocko Go hotline at 303-831-1340 for a discount on any of those Jocko Fuel products. Use the code MMA Plug in the checkout there. This weekend in Vegas, you have UFC Fight Night with a middleweight showcase going down between two top-ranked contenders. Number 8 Georgian fighter Roman Dolidze taking on the Dagestani-turned-Frenchman, 11th ranked Nasruddin Imavov. I think that Roman Dolidze is a juggernaut in this division, ladies and gentlemen. I think that that was a very tightly contested fight that he had against Marvin Vettori, and this guy is not going to be anything overly refined or completely polished and technical in a sense, if you will, but he is a complete brute. He is a bruiser, and he is good all the way around. He's strong on the feet. He has the ability to go out there and submit submission specialists. We saw the way that he was able to just completely neutralize and bend Jack Hermanson in every which way that he possibly wanted to in that fight. And then, like I say, he's had a little bit of inactivity. It's been close to a year since we've seen Roman Dolidze. He was supposed to fight back in November, and then that was the whole Brunson situation when Brunson ended up leaving, then goes on, takes his path into the PFL. Then he was supposed to fight Cannonier. Cannonier then got hurt. But now he has this matchup against Nasruddin Imavov, and Imavov, he's a guy who has had a lot of potential and has been thought of as one of those possible dark horse contenders in his young career. You know, the Russian sniper is still only 27 years old with his 12-4 record. He has had a little bit of up and down luck in his last few fights. He dropped the fight to Phil Haas, then picked up a couple of big wins against Ian Heinisch, finished Edmund Shabazian, beat Joaquin Buckley. That fight against Buckley, though, he did, toward the end, really look like he petered out, and he started to have a bit of a stamina issue toward the end. Lost to Sean Strickland, now the champion. I mean, I guess you can't say that that's really the worst loss in the world, given that Sean was then the champion, now obviously Dricus, but he then lost to, a no contest against Chris Curtis with the accidental clash of heads. A fair amount of inactivity, though, again, for Nasruddin. And I know that he's had a couple of injuries in the process. He was supposed to fight back at UFC 294 against Ikram Aliskerov and had to end up pulling out of that bout. But, again, I think that this is a good matchup between a couple of top-ranked middleweights. Roman Dolidze being at 35, I don't know how much more we see in terms of layers of evolution from Roman. I think that what we see, or what we've seen thus far from Roman, is what we're going to get. Whereas somebody who's still as young as Nasruddin is, there's still a lot of time for him to continue to unveil and unlock levels of growth within his game. I'm not exactly sure how this one may potentially play out, but if Roman Dolidze ends up finding his way on top, I mean, I think that guy's an absolute hammer. He is an underdog as far as the opening lines go slightly. I don't know. I think that him being the higher ranked guy in that respect, he's got some things that he's trying to fight for in this matchup. I like Dolidze, but I'm not in love. I think it's pretty much a pick 'em in this particular matchup there. The co-main event is one of Denver's own. You have number 15 ranked Drew Dober taking on Renato Moicano. Money Moicano sporting that number 13 ranking, he made some headlines this week, almost devaluing his own show and card that he's on. He said that he doesn't really care for these Apex cards. He would rather be buried on a prelim on a pay per view card where there's a crowd than being in the Apex. Whether or not that's his true feelings, who knows? But what he did do is garner attention. He did get his name put in headlines all over the place, and now there's a little bit of buzz circulating about it. There's been some inactivity from Moicano too, but him taking on Drew Dober, that is, to me, it's a tremendous matchup that we get here for a fight night card, especially in one of these co-main event slots that could headline another fight night card easily, in my opinion. You have Moicano coming off of that big victory back in 2022 when the Money Moicano persona was birthed at UFC 281 when he had that rear naked choke over Brad Riddell. Now, Drew Dober, one of the top finishers, period, in the UFC's 31 going on years of existence now. Top knockout guy for the lightweight division in that respect. This is going to be a crazy fight in terms of the styles because you have Drew, who's obviously the Muay Thai specialist, but is slick on the ground and doesn't get enough credit. And then you have Moicano, who is just a violently explosive guy all the way around. Personally, I mean, I have to ride with the hometown guy. All facts, no feelings, or maybe that's all feelings, no facts, whichever way you want to go with it. Shout out to the big yins out there. I remember when he used to always twist us around with those Danny. Those were some good throwback times with Josh isms. But yeah, moving along, we have the feature fight in the welterweight division. You have Randy Brown taking on Muslim Salikov. Now, this is a crazy fight on paper. You have Randy Brown, who is a long and lengthy welterweight who loves to slang them things, and you have Muslim Salikov, who is a murderer all the way around. That guy is a finisher, and he's a threat one way or the other. I think that the winner of this fight is looking at then going on to a ranked matchup next. This is one where the fans win, plain and simple. This is a fight that, like I say, I think that you have to keep your eyes on this one, and you have to absolutely love it. Some other fights on the card that I think are worth keeping your eyes on. You have the veteran Mahmoud Muradov taking on the 14-0 Elias Kab Kizri. Now, those are some names for you, ladies and gentlemen. But that's a Kazakhstani vet of many, many fights, taking on an undefeated surging Russian prospect. That's a fight that, again, you probably don't know who these guys are in terms of a large sense of their body of work, just based off of, they fought on some of the international cards, or, just not a lot of stateside eyes, but certainly a couple of guys who, like we say, are very talented competitors and are going to be going out there looking to stake their claim in that middleweight division come Saturday. Then you have the Ultimate Fighter runner-up Gilbert Urbina taking on Charles Radke. Now, the question came up, and I saw this across multiple social media forums out there. And this is kind of one of those, if you know, you knows, because we definitely can't say what he said over the airwaves. But if Radke were to win, do they give him the microphone after his last blunder? Because, yeah, he went full Sean Strickland, shall we say, in his last post-fight interview. And whether or not they give him the opportunity or not, I'm sure they will. He was apologetic immediately after that outburst in his previous situation. So we'll see. Just had to throw that one out there, though. Purely observational. You have the meatball Molly McCann looking to bounce back from back-to-back submission losses against the Warrior Princess Diana Belbita. Molly had a rise that built her star power and just her attraction because of the Patty hype and them being such a connected at the hip sort of duo that they even have their TV show now. And she had a couple of very interesting matchups, especially going on. And I mean, I thought that it was very ill advised that she took the Erin Blanchfield fight. Erin Blanchfield, I think, is the next coming. She is the heir apparent. She will be a champion at some point in that women's flyweight division, and that was just it was a straight up mistake for Molly to take that fight, in my opinion. I mean, as much as I like Molly for her entertainment value and her willingness just to go out there, go to war, and bang it out, that was a terrible matchup for her in that respect, and that was the first of two back-to-back losses now, and Molly needs to get a win here because no matter what the situation is in terms of your social media draw power, show, the barstool attachment, the Patty Association, any of those things, the luster of all of that, or a lot of those things go away. The Drake shout outs and the Rolexes and so on and so that stuff goes away when you stop winning. So for Molly, she certainly needs to try to do absolutely everything within her power to get her hand raised against Bobita this weekend. You have a matchup of the former LFA flyweight champion Charles Energy Johnson making the walk against the undefeated Kazakh Azat Maksum. It's going to be a tough fight out there. Charles Johnson hasn't had an easy road in the UFC, but that's a guy who I know works his absolute tail off. He at every juncture of his career, he's just been one of the hardest working guys in the situation, evidenced by him winning that Tiger Muay Thai scholarship back in the day. Had to take the long route to getting that LFA title, had to make a couple of defenses to be able to then ultimately get signed into the UFC, has fought a bunch of top prospects along the way, and some guys who they were certainly trying to build up on the hype side of things, like Muhammad Mokaev, so on and so forth. And he's fighting another very tough matchup this weekend, but you can only tip your cap to someone who is a G, like the inner G, Charles Johnson. There is a matchup in the welterweight division between Temba Gorimbo and Pete Rodriguez. Temba was one of the feel-good stories last year. He got that big win, the inspirational kind of rags to riches, in a sense, if you will, sort of story. Got the home from The Rock and is just an all-around inspirational tale. He's looking to follow up on that here as he takes on the Florida prospect in Pete Rodriguez. Then you have another built-up prospect through the UFC channels. This is through the Road to UFC, which is essentially kind of like the Contender Series from Asia, if you will. But you have Zhang Yang Lee taking on Blake Builder. Lee cut his teeth, like we say, through that Road to UFC fight series. He won his debut. Now he takes on the Contender Series vet in Blake Builder. Builder's looking to bounce back into the winner's circle, while Lee is currently riding a 7-fight win streak. So it's going to be an interesting clash there to see who gets their hand raised on Saturday. Following that, you have Yulia Stoliarenko taking on Luana Carolina. Listen, guys, if we know anything at all about Yulia Stoliarenko's fights, or wins, should we say, it's going to be an armbar. Now, jiu-jitsu belts don't always directly translate into MMA, but we're talking about a black belt who is an armbar specialist going up against a blue belt. And if you find a spot that's offering that line and there's some value, hammer that son of a bitch, because she has 9 of her 11 wins by armbar. That's one that I think you have to keep in mind, certainly just based off of the frequency and what the trend line of history is there. Luana might very well get the job done. Stoliarenko is a very middle of the road journeywoman type of record. All due respect, but she's only a couple of fights above the 500 margin. But we know that if she does win, it's going to be by armbar. Next on the card, though, it's our boy, it's our friend of the program, a teammate in Markel Medeiros, who's going to be making his UFC debut against Tough 31 cast member Landon Quinones. Landon made his debut last September at UFC 293, where he lost to Nasrat Haqparast. Now, Markel is one of those electric prospects at 26 years old. Coming into the UFC, he stamped his ticket to the UFC with an electrifying knee on the Contender Series back in October. Had all of the powers that be with full attention on him. Dana stopped him on the walk from the octagon going toward the back, telling him that he is absolutely everything that he wants in a fighter. Markel is a guy who I've had the fortunate opportunity of watching be able to just learn and grow throughout the years. And he is wise beyond his years as far as just in the cage and in life. He's one of those guys who you can't help but want to see do well because he checks all the boxes of taking care of what needs to be done. Works hard, is a talented kid, is invested into himself and into his career, is a good teammate. Just can't say enough glowing things about Markel Medeiros. And by all of that, obviously, I want him to get his hand raised. But also removing those things and objectively speaking, I think that skill for skill, Markel is the superior fighter. When Markel is able to put himself in the type of mind state that he fought with throughout the 2023 run that he had, where he removed all of the emotion and focused solely on the task, he's a problem for anyone because he is so dynamic and possesses so many different tools and routes to victory. I look for this one to end inside of 15 in favor of Markel. And then jerking the curtain, we have a heavyweight matchup between Thomas Peterson and Jamal Pogue. You have Peterson, who was a former LFA heavyweight champ, while Jamal was an LFA light heavyweight title challenger. You have Thomas Peterson, who is 8-1 with 8 finishes, 7 by KO TKO, and his only career loss came in an LFA title fight to now UFC vet and former Cincinnati Reds pitcher Waldo Cortez Acosta. So I think that that's going to be a couple of big boys who are going to go out there and sling some leather. If you see good value on that one not going the distance, might want to take a little bit of action on that one too, because, hey, heavyweights, all it takes is one. That wraps up our UFC Fight Night preview segment. Stick around after the break, folks. We're going to be talking some current events and closing out the hour by going 3 rounds. This is the MMA Plug presented to you by Mile High Sports on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. That helps us continue to produce this original MMA content and bring it for you every single week. Tune in to the MMA Plug on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio.